Welcome to BIB Today, the daily podcast from the newsroom of business in Vancouver. I'm Kirk LaPointe, publisher and editor-in-chief. So here's an attractive executive opportunity. Move to the Lower Mainland during the pandemic, be accountable to about 24 self-interested politicians, operate a transit system on tightened budgets that everyone knows has been far too slow over the decades to develop, considering our determination to get out of the cars. Yes, that seems awfully irresistible, but Kevin Quinn decided to do it. He's come here from the Maryland Transportation Administration, the MTA, to take on the CEO role at TransLink. He took over the role from Kevin Desmond, who returned to the United States earlier this year. He joins me now. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
By the way, do you have to be named Kevin to get the job now? Is that the thing?
Seems to be one of the qualifiers. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So why do this one? Why come here? You probably had lots of options in the transportation sector. You came north, you came west, you came to a different place.
Yeah, so I think a few reasons. So first, I'll just note that TransLink has a really good reputation in the transit industry, from winning the System of the Year award, I think back in 2019. I think that was really big to put TransLink on the map. I had served on a couple of conference panels with Kevin Desmond over the years and was always really impressed with the investments that were being made in the Vancouver region. And also just note, personally, my wife, my two kids, and I were looking to try something new and live somewhere different. And the kind of Pacific Northwest was always really attractive to us. I have a sister that lives in Seattle. And so we were excited for a big adventure, for sure.
And you wanted to learn about the Canadian Football League as opposed to the NFL down there.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. I'm glad you confirmed that. So what have been some of your early stage adaptations, though, Kevin?
Sure. So I guess I'll just note that from an adaptations perspective, the Canadian kind of model is very consensus driven. I think that's been instructive for me to sort of understand and sort of immerse myself in that philosophy. I think the American model of leadership can be a little more get right to it and make a decision and sort of, I don't want to say damn the consequences, but it can be a little more directive. And so I can appreciate the Canadian model. It's been something I've had to adapt to, but I can say I think it results in some better decision making and certainly getting a lot of buy-in from staff prior to moving forward with decisions. So that's been a big one for me.
Yeah, what were you able to bring from the MTA in the way of even the pandemic protocols that were underway?
Yeah, so I think similar to TransLink, MTA and a lot of other transit agencies saw significant ridership decline. Once COVID hit, and everyone's trying to figure out a way to claw back. And so, in my role in Maryland, I certainly had access to a lot of other systems and seeing what folks did, whether it was cleaning protocols, changing service delivery models, changing fare payment models to really adapt and react to changing travel patterns. I think I was able to bring sort of a lens and a perspective on that. It's interesting in that the US has somewhat always been a few months ahead of where Canada was, with when the waves were hitting. And so, I sort of arrived as society was kind of opening back up in the States. I think as we've seen with Delta, perhaps that was a little too early. And I think the PHO here has taken some really good steps to try to get a handle on things before Delta has really hit this area too hard.
Do you think that confidence, safety confidence, has pretty much returned to the system?
You mean kind of just like passenger confidence in the system? Yeah, I think we're seeing that. Following the pandemic, TransLink dropped to about 20% of normal ridership levels. It kind of last, I think, August through a couple of months ago, plateaued at around 40%. And we've recently seen it jump to right around 50%. So we're seeing, these really small incremental increases. And yeah, I do think that has a lot to do with confidence. I think we've been really getting the message out there that, transit is safe to ride, and we're doing what we can to adapt the system to those changing travel patterns, whether it's add a bit of service here, add a bit of service there. Something that's really emerging for us is this issue of overcrowding. I think that, prior to COVID, there was a lot of overcrowding on the TransLink system, and overcrowding means something very different today than it did back then, as we've just lived through 18 months of messaging around social distancing and separating each other. So that's something I'm certainly acutely aware of, and we're going to be attuned to these sort of nuanced differences coming out of COVID.
I mean, we're probably still a little bit of time away from the big heat to return to offices and workplaces and all that. There's still a fair amount of flexibility that's going to be in a system like that. But when you talk about overcrowding, I mean, it still happens. It's still going to happen. There are still rush hours, even in this situation today.
Sure.
How do you think you can deal with that? I mean, you can't load on that many more buses, that many more subways, that many more SkyTrains.
Yeah, it's a good point. So, I think for our part, right now we do a daily monitoring. I get, for example, we get regularly reports of overcrowding conditions on certain bus routes, and we do have the ability to add that back in. I think another thing that we're doing is we're trying to put some of that information and some of that technology in people's hands. So, a few weeks ago, we launched this room to ride feature on the transit app. And what it does is it takes historical ridership data and shows you, whether it's likely sort of that the bus coming up to you will be crowded or not. I think it's going to be things like that we do in the future, putting that sort of information around crowding data in people's hands that allows them to make a decision. Some people are fine getting on an overcrowded bus. They might put a mask on and say, you know what, I'm good. That's enough protection for me. Some people might say, no, I want a bus that has as few number of people as possible. I'm going to wait a few minutes for that bus. Giving people that choice and that information to allow them to make that choice. I think it's projects like that are going to really guide our future.
So we're recording this the week before the return to school for university students. I'm sure you must have heard many times in Maryland how, the B line, the number 99 bus is the busiest bus in North America, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What can you do there?
Yeah. So, a few things. I think from a PHO standpoint, they've reinstated a mask mandate that we have put on our system. And, I ride the system every single day. And I can tell you I think I've seen one person without a mask. It's very high compliance with people wearing masks. I can tell you that there's lots of studies that have shown that there has been no real transmission of COVID on transit. And I can also tell you that there's been lots of studies done on airflow in bus and rail vehicles that have shown that those systems, we've upgraded the filters and that the airflow through those vehicles is really good and pretty healthy, and that people should feel safe riding transit. Absolutely.
Yeah. Windows will stay open, I imagine, for a while.
Yeah. As many buses as we can. I think there's a couple model years buses that I've learned that don't have that window feature. But I know that again, everywhere we can, we are opening windows, and we've upgraded the filters where we can and made sure that those air ventilation systems are working properly.
Yeah. Let's change the channel a little bit on this one. You're arriving at a time when our region is really beginning to come to grips much more with concepts like mobility pricing in order to try to accentuate the number of people that are taking the public system day by day. In terms of your own vision for the transit system, what kind of integration do you think is possible with a mobility pricing system?
Well, I don't want to get too far ahead of sort of where elected officials and municipal leaders are going to take this. I think for our part, municipal pricing could be really beneficial. I think there are some models that are out there that have been shown to be successful. I think we all know that the gas tax isn't going to be around much longer. I think we all see electrification of vehicles, and that we're going to need to explore some new pricing models. I want to be sensitive to the fact that there are some areas that right now don't have very good transit service, and that they're going to be resistant to some of those pricing models, like a per kilometer type of a model, right? So I guess, for my part, I want to be sensitive to sort of each municipality, each region's needs, and I want to focus on, fairness and equity as well, as we look to roll those things out.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, a lot of the municipal leaders are in different, uh, mindsets about what
Yep.
can and can't happen for the people. So I mean, I'm not trying to get the state secret out of you, but we're looking at something that is going to be a bit of a patchwork, right? It's not necessarily going to be uniform across all of the Lower Mainland.
I think so. I think we're looking at a lot of different options. Again, as the guy that's been here a month and trying to get the lay of the land, I think this theme of regional equity has really stuck out to me, and being sure that we are not applying sort of a sledgehammer approach, that we are using a scalpel.
Yeah. Um, so you haven't probably come fully to terms yet with the governance model of TransLink. Did you have something like that at the MTA? Did you have that many people that were largely over you?
Yeah, the MTA had a very interesting governance model, and that the agency was actually part of state government. It was part of the executive branch of state government. So it was a very interesting model. That said, so I reported up to the governor of Maryland, but the area that I served was filled with mayors and county executives and delegates and senators that all I very much felt like I reported to as well on a daily basis. And so if accountability is kind of the name of the game, I do feel like I lived that a good bit.
You do know that they all know your job better than you'll ever know it.
I have found that, yes.
Okay. One thing, though, that is clearly an issue is the region is moving, of course, toward this extension of a subway out to University of British Columbia.
Yeah.
But our population growth is quite substantial south of the Fraser, in exactly the opposite direction toward Chilliwack and Abbotsford and all that. As you start, do you have the sense that there is enough money for both?
Yeah, I mean, from what it appears to me, I mean, I think that our provincial partners have really stepped up, and I appreciate their contributions to the project. I think that's been tremendously helpful to advancing these. That said, I've heard the concern loud and clear from a lot of business leaders about the growth in the region and the need for infrastructure to be able to keep up with it. That's very high on my radar as we look to set out the projects, for the next 10 years. Is what we're doing, the recent SLS announcement, the Broadway subway project, in a way, is it enough? And I think for right now, it's what we've got. We've got to do a good job of planning for the future and figuring out what that funding model is going to be for the future as well. Yeah,
when you're dealing with, in a sense, multiple levels of government, in this case here, again, is that different than anything you really had to do at MTA in terms of wrangling what are often some competing interests?
No, I think it's. I think just about anywhere you go, there's going to be this sort of tension. In the United States, is the transportation budget and funding flows a lot out of the federal government. Here, there's a lot of federal money that comes down to the province, and the provincial government kind of in some ways is who you got to work with, in addition to your federal partners as well. So I think, for me, it's learning the nuances of kind of these regional differences. But anywhere you go, there's going to be these tough conversations of, limited resources, especially now during COVID, and working with senior government partners to make projects a reality.
Yeah. In terms of your own management style, Kevin, you say that you're riding TransLink every day and all that can often make the boss go, I see this and I see that and I see that and I need this done and I need that done. Are you spotting things that you think need some change already?
Sure, absolutely. Let's see. Signage is big to me, and so where I see signage issues, I'll call that in. If I see, at some of the SkyTrain platforms, I've noticed a couple of broken glass panels, some of our big panels that we have, and I've called those in and learned that those are very, very expensive when they get broken and take months to replace because they have to be special order and specially inserted. Wow. Elevators and escalators, can be problematic and kind of finicky things. And so I think there's these kind of basics of customer experience that you've got to meet that all honestly add up to kind of trust in the system. And it's a kind of a question that you asked before. For riders to fully trust in a system, you don't want to see broken glass. You want to see elevators that work. You want to see the buses and the trains come on time. I think we can sort of identify all these individual little pieces of a customer journey. For me, that all adds up to trust in the system. And I want to be sure that our riders have as much trust in the system as they can.
Yeah. Last couple of things. First off, I always ask leaders, how are they taking care of themselves in all of this, in a new city with a family, trying to figure out how to make your way in a new community like this?
Yeah. So, I was really lucky. TransLink put together kind of an employee message board with suggestions for things for me and my family to do. And so I've been making my way through that board and kind of ticking things off. So I think a great way of that I've been doing some self-care is, on the weekends, my family and I are going out and exploring the region tremendously. We're big hikers. I'm a trail runner. So I get out running a good bit early in the morning before work. My family and I go hiking and exploring, and we've done quite a bit in a pretty short period of time. It's been exciting. It's a beautiful region. We're really excited to be here and be exploring it. Yeah.
A very relevant question for you would be, as a transplanted American here, are you now learning to pronounce the word route instead of route?
I am. I'm getting the word route out of my vocabulary and route. See, I can't even say it now. I can't. It's like it's not even there anymore.
Yeah,
but route is in my vocabulary for sure.
I think I heard a route earlier, but anyway, we'll anyway.
I'll get that.
Good self-policing. It's all important. But anyway, listen, it's been great getting an early stage, bit of information from you about what you're learning and all that. I hope we can keep the dialogue going and talk to you from time to time just to get some of the things going. And when you are, of course, at the advocacy stage of all of this, we'd love to have you back and talk then.
That sounds great. Really enjoyed the conversation, and definitely let's stay in touch.
Kevin Quinn is the new CEO at TransLink. I'm Kirk LaPointe, publisher and editor-in-chief at Business in Vancouver. Thanks a lot for watching.